So this came out today, and this is ultimately what COVID was really all about. It was to bring in more science, to bring in bigger government, because that's what has happened over time, more government controlling you, and now science doing it, which is why you were told for so long, trust the science. Now, granted, are there some things that science has done that's helped people? Yeah, they've treated symptoms and different things like that, and yes, surgeries, and but they, like any good deceiver, they have to throw you some bones so you don't catch on. The very fact that CDC, nor Health and Human Services, or public health, or the medical or nursing profession at the top wants to know more about the gain of function that was going on, or take that under advisement that maybe we shouldn't still continue to be run by this tyrannical science, is concerning. It shows that this is why they want you to have all this higher education, because it's less likely that you'll step out of line, which is why the government itself wants to cognitively control all, because they didn't come this far for you to just start thinking for yourself. So this came out today, and this is what it says. And I think everybody's just tired of CDC, public health, all of it. CDC is conducting a new pilot on samples it is collecting as part of its traveler-based genomic surveillance program that will provide early detection of flu, RSV, and select other respiratory viruses, in addition to SARS-CoV-2. The pilot, which will last for several months, will be implemented by Ginkgo Bioworks, and Express Check samples that test positive for these viruses will be sequenced and uploaded to public databases to provide valuable information to public health officials and policymakers. Sounds like just a lot of nonsense from people that don't even want to look at or address the gain of function. The expansion of the traveler-based genomic surveillance program to flu, RSV, and other pathogens. That's what I mean. Like, they didn't ever want to cure any of this stuff. Like, there was a time we used to have the flu, and you'd get it, and that was it. And now we have these vaccines that you're supposed to take, and they base it off of the previous year, that the type that they assume that will come the next year. Think about that. I mean, there was a time we didn't go running to get flu, but this is why they don't want to solve any of these things, because it's been about tyranny and control. So let me start. The expansion of the traveler-based genomic surveillance program to flu, RSV, and other pathogens is essential as we head into the fall respiratory season. The TGS program, which began during the COVID-19 pandemic, acted as an early warning system to detect new and rare variants of SARS-CoV-2 virus, and will do the same for other respiratory viruses going forward. So TGS is a multi-model platform that consists of three complementary approaches, including voluntary nasal sampling of arriving international travelers, aircraft testing, and wastewater sampling at 7 airports nationwide. Health officials in the United States quickly adapting to changing pandemic in real time and addressing gaps in global surveillance. No, they love to promote themselves of all this thing. This isn't even going on at the border. So think about it. What is it really about? Again, this means you have to come out of the conditioning that your whole life you've been trained, that the government knows best, the TV never lies to you, they're not programming you on a regular basis to believe something. Trusting the science has only been told to you, but when you really look into their history and then see how now we're more advanced than we were all those years ago, and yet they have no cures, none. Science has not cured one thing. They have a ton of medical testing equipment. They have a ton of vaccines. They have never cured anything. They will say vaccines cure. No, because they say if you don't take it, then it comes back. How do we know that? How do we know any of this? And it loses more credibility because, again, the House had oversight over Fauci and all that and discovered the gain of function that went on. And it wasn't the first time. But because people will believe the reality that they're presented with, you don't question it. But it makes no sense for the CDC to even do this when they're not even doing this at the border. Now, they'll tell you, no, we do test at the border. No, they're not. There's been enough people that have said, no, they are not. It's all to destroy your country and bring in bigger government that will control you. And what they're saying now that will be voluntary nasal swabs, no, that will become a regular thing. Can you imagine not being able to go into a supermarket or to your job without, and many people had to do this that didn't want to take the vaccine, right? You had to swab yourself or get swabbed. Can you imagine that on a regular basis? Or could you imagine if it turned out to be like in China where they did rectal swabs? That was what they demanded. They did. So these things are important to think about. It may seem scary to people, but the answer isn't to turn away from it. The answer is to no longer give these agencies any legitimacy. Yeah, I know that means a bunch of people in medicine or in the medical field think, well, no, I have to keep my job. Okay, but then think about what you're sacrificing. Because believe me, this won't stop here. The control, you will come to a place where you're like, oh my God, why didn't I do something? Science is controlling every moment of my life through technology, through biometrics, everything. That's what they want. It's a worse kind of communism than you can imagine. Because they don't have to actually put you in a cell. They can put you, they can just, if you don't go along with the social credit program, the social justice program, then you will not get jobs. You will get fired from jobs. They'll bankrupt you. I mean, and those are horrible things to think about, but because we have people that are too educated at these agencies and running healthcare that they themselves don't want to see how they've been deceived. It's how you get into tyranny. What happened during COVID was tyranny. It had nothing to do with your health. If it did, they would have protected the vulnerable. They did not. The amount of children that were damaged from lockdowns and all of it that I've mentioned so many times. And the elderly, those are the vulnerable populations. The little children and the elderly. Elderly were imprisoned in their rooms. Think about the people that had dementia. They just decayed. They declined. That's not a healthcare or agencies of public health that you want to be in charge of anything. They will tell you it's for all this good. No. 2015, Stanford researchers uncover patterns in how scientists lie about their data. Yeah, there's this belief in society that, well, the science isn't biased or racist, but they are racist. They're operating on social justice. That's how racist they are. And there's this belief that we've all been raised in to believe that, well, science would never lie because they're so educated. Well, I think that there's more people with a moral compass that are less educated than the science itself at this point. When scientists falsify data, they try to cover it up by writing differently in their published works. A pair of Stanford researchers have devised a way of identifying these written clues. Yeah, there's a ton of ways you can see this. These papers that sound all good, it doesn't mean it's evidence. If they want to push a tyrannical system, they will use science and public health to do it. That was shown to most of the public in 2020. I just watched, and this was from 5 years ago, was it University of McGill or Gill, that did what was called, it was a neurological trick they did on people because it was an experiment testing the power of suggestion. I'll get into that in another video because there was some interesting things that science did.